Nassim, tell me a little bit about yourself, the work that you do, and a little bit about your background for the people watching.
I'm an independent researcher that have been doing extensive research in advanced physics and philosophy and ancient civilization, archaeology, and so on, in order to find a unified view of the physics of our world. How is all this came together in this incredible, beautiful way, like the settings we're in right now, and how does it actually eventually generate consciousness and all this stuff. But at the very fundamental physical level, that is like using physical theory, not just philosophy and mathematics, so that actually we understand the mechanics and we're not just saying things like it's all one in a dogmatic way, but we can actually prove and demonstrate that actually it is the way it is, and these are the mechanics under which that happens.
Is this a new concept, or is this a concept that you're bringing forward from the past through old revelations that have come from previous civilizations?
All spiritual traditions around the world pretty well talk about this concept of oneness, and they might call it God or many different things, mana and all sorts of things, but they all talked about the fact that it's all unified, and that there's like information that's moving through this field of unification. And what's really exciting now is that science is starting to realize that that's really the case. It's not just a philosophy, it's not just a dogma, but actually that's the way things work. And I think that when these masters talked about it, the universe being one and all this, they meant it that way. They meant it for real, that like even matter is not separate from each other. Like each point in space is not completely isolated from the rest of the points in space, but everything is actually talking. We're starting to discover, for instance, that entangled particles are connected through wormholes in the structure of space, and that black holes are connected through wormholes, and like it's starting to come out of the physics.
Is that what they consider the quantum foam? Is that the wormholes that you speak of? Is that kind of what physics are talking about as quantum foam?
Exactly. That at the very, very fine level, at the very, very small level, these fluctuations of energy in the structure of space-time are making space-time curve to the point that they're little wormholes, like very, very fine, like way below the atom, so you don't know they're there, but they are connecting particles together and making the universe unified.
And that's I find it fascinating. When we spoke before in an interview about this feedback system, you put out intent, and then the universe will give you back what you need or what you want, right? I just wanted you to expand on that a little bit about this feedback looping system that you're theorizing.
So basically, I've shown in my equation that the mass of the nuclei of atoms is the result of these fluctuations in space that you can think of as information. And you can think of information going out of a point and coming back into a point, and so that there's constant feedback relationship with the environment, so that systems eventually self-organize in a very complex way because there's constant feedback. That wouldn't happen under random function. And so, and in fact, the probabilities of our universe coming together, or even our sphere coming together under random function, doesn't add up, in 13.7 billion years since the so-called Big Bang. So like, the probabilities are so low, like extremely, extremely low. There's no way it could have happened unless there's feedback, unless it's learning about itself. And so, the wheel of karma that you find in some of the traditions, the concept that you're creating your reality, that whatever you put out, you get, and all this stuff, are, I believe, concepts that people have like understood from experiencing the universe, that are actually now starting to come out in the physics, meaning that like, yeah, it really is talking to itself, and that's how it's learning, and you're part of that mechanism. So whatever you put out will come back to you, but it will come back modified, meaning people think, I create my reality. That's common. You hear that from spiritual people all the time. But it's not just, that's only part of the feedback, right? There's a feed forward, I create my reality, and there's a feedback, reality creates me, meaning like all the rest of the people, you know, are involved in creating your reality. Right. We're not individually creating our reality, otherwise we would never meet. We'd all be in our own reality. But we have a consensus reality.
So then therefore, if there's this feedback looping mechanism and the universe is growing and learning about itself through us, I got two questions here. Is the universe then, in your mind, its own conscious sentient being? Is it alive through us, or is it alive adjacent to us?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and you know, that's, of course, if the feedback is the source of consciousness, meaning that the reason why we're self-aware is because there's feedback in the structure of space, you can't really say at one point there is no feedback and at the other point there is, right? You can't, like, and that's a big problem in consciousness study. You can't say, oh, inanimate matter is not conscious,
not participating,
you're not participating, and then all of a sudden you got consciousness, because us being conscious is a bunch of minerals and water put together in a sack that's moving around that we call our body, and that's conscious. So consciousness must be part of the whole thing, or it's not there at all. And so I think that, you know, the whole universe is conscious, and it's expressing itself eventually with higher and higher level of complexity to eventually something that looks like us, or it might look different on another planet, but something that's able to move around, that's able to look back at the universe and learn about itself.
So we have a special place, quote unquote special place, by having the senses that we have to look back on itself. And some would argue, you know, like I'm looking at the beautiful lake here with the rocks, the trees around us. Like I know that rock, if I run up to it and smack my toe on it, it's going to affect me, right? So it is participating in my reality, even though from my perspective,
it's not.
I see it as an inanimate object.
That's right.
But that's just an egotistical frame of reference that I'm using.
That's right.
We're going to jump in the cold water, right?
You're thinking that you're separate from the water, from the rock, and all this stuff. But without the water, without the rock, you're not here.
I'm not going to feel any sensation.
Yeah, you're not going to have a body. If that all that stuff wasn't there, supporting the evolution to eventually have a human being, that doesn't happen, right? So it's all connected. It's all talking. It's all like a support mechanism of learning, you know, of a universe that's learning about itself.
Now, is there anything in your current research or your past knowledge where talking about predicting the future? So could someone be sitting here today and gain information from the universe to predict something that may happen in the future? Is there any sort of mechanism in that feedback system?
Absolutely. And not only that, that means as well that the universe has memory, because if it's an evolution, right? There's memory. And what is memory in the universe? What is memory in physics? Memory in physics is time, meaning that we wouldn't have time if we didn't have memory. If you didn't remember the minute before, you wouldn't know that there is a continuous, you know, evolution of event, right? So you wouldn't have a concept of time. Remove the word time and replace it with memory, and so that means that
I like that.
So it's space memory instead of space time, and that means that space is actually like a medium, like the vacuum fluctuation we were discussing is like a medium that has information in it, right? And what you call your past which is your memory, right?
Yeah.
Is actually information you left on the structure of space-time as you move through it on the planet and, you know, in the solar system and all this stuff. So that means that, like, the information that's present at any moment in space, right, is what will predict what's coming next, right? It's gonna make these events probable in one direction. So if you access that information, you could, you know, predict the probabilities of it, what is going to come next.
To a higher degree of certainty.
That's right.
But you'll never actually be able to 100% nail it because it's still in that feedback system going.
Because it's constantly changing.
Okay. Right. So with this space memory, and I love that term, is that what the ancients would call the Akashic records? Or
absolutely.
That's this hidden gem that we're all looking for.
That's right.
So how would one then tune themselves in order to at least interact with that fabric, that space memory more? What could one human flesh and bones person do to achieve that?
Well, you can think of your body, instead of like being the seat of consciousness, you can think of your body as being an antenna that's tapping into this Akashic record. And what you call your consciousness is the information you're sending into the Akashic record, and the information the Akashic record is sending back to you, or the vacuum, you know, in more modern terms. So
the vacuum is the Akashic record.
Right.
That's it. That's all the information.
Yeah, it's the fluctuation of the information in the structure of space. So if you look at my equations, you find that like every proton has all the information of all the other protons in the universe in terms of vacuum information inside it. And that's and it might sound really outrageous, but the equation outputs a very precise mass and radius for the proton. That's the most precise measurement on the planet today. So, you know, it's not just an esoteric thought. It actually does the job in actually describing matter very, very precisely. So, so if you understand that, then you understand that going inward in your senses towards the center of your existence, literally towards the center of every atom that makes you. You're made out of 100 trillion cells. Each cell's has 100 trillion atoms in it. And you went, so like any practice in which you're going to the center of your existence will bring you to the access to the Akashic record.
So you're seeking it. The old sages would say this: you seek the information from inside,
from
within, not from without.
That's right. But because without, it's limited. You have limited amount of access to information.
Because you're limited to just your senses.
That's right.
Whereas if you go internally,
you have access
to everything.
That's right.
Okay, that's fine.
And that's why people can do remote viewing, remote healing, and all this stuff. How can you remote view something that's on the other side of the planet, which has been demonstrated in laboratories over and over since the 70s, like, you know, with undoubting, you know, results, that people can do that. They're not doing that by trying to sense outside themselves what's going on the other side of the planet. They're going inside, internally, and there they find the information that they're seeking. So
therefore, then that makes me think of every single proton in my body, every single molecular atom inside my body holds the seed of everybody else's consciousness inside of me. Because if all the information is packed inside each and every one of the atoms in my body, basically I am everything, and everything is me.
That's right.
And as long as I can fine-tune my body and get rid of the blinders that I have on,
and
constantly actively seeking outwards,
and the idea of separation, because you think you're there and I'm here and the rock's there and the lake's there and the mountains are there and it's all separate. But when you actually see that the vacuum between me and you and everything is connected, and it's connecting everything, it's all within you and without, you know, then you can start to actually become an active what I call vacuum engineer, meaning you can you can actually start to manipulate the field so that you can, or harmonize with the field so that you can flow with nature, you can flow with the universe in such a way that you become more and more powerful in your capacity to manifest what you want and to complete, whatever mission is that you're on and that you're here to accomplish.
Yeah. So speaking of missions, what's the Resonance Project Foundation working on right now? You got the delegate program?
We got the delegate program, which is great. It's like a 12-week course, and you get all the information, all the physics, all the philosophy, all the mathematics, everything is in there. You can skim along on the easy path, or you can dig as deep as you want, and it's great. And all the references are there. You can go and take tangents wherever you want, and then one time out of the month for 2 hours, I answer questions for people that are taking the course, and it's really a wonderful course. I'm really happy we have that available for people now.
So what would this give people? It just give them a nice overall view of this concept of the connected universe. It'll give them tangents for them to jump off on.
Yeah.
Whatever their passion is, whatever they're called to explore deeper into different aspects of the connected universe.
If they want to start solving the equations, or if they're interested in ancient civilization or philosophy, whatever, there's all the references there, and it's constantly being updated, so the new information gets put in and all this stuff. And so it's really a comprehensive course, and everybody that's taken it so far, it's remarkable. The feedback we're getting is that it's transformative. It's transforming people's life. Anybody that takes it come out with a completely different outlook on themselves, the universe, and their place in it than when they started. So it's very compelling, it's very powerful.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So from that would stem out, and I know your work, would stem out a lot of solutions, a lot of new concepts, and a lot of practical applications that might butt heads with the current establishment in today's world.
Oh yeah,
whether or not be politics, with oil, with big industry, big pharma. So have you ever seen any resistance? Have you ever felt any resistance to these new concepts that you're bringing forward with the Resonance Project?
Oh my God, for sure. We're talking over the last 30 years of research that I've done, I've seen, and at level, especially in science and physics and so on, it's extremely difficult to get heard. It's extremely difficult. You get ridiculed in many different ways. It's actually pretty painful, and it's a hero's journey to go against some of the largest establishment, both on the spiritual side and religious side, and on the scientific academic side. And so I've experienced many events of censoring and difficulties.
Yeah, for the audience, Nassim writes actual physics papers and tries to present them to the scientific community, which are, institutionalized organizations like the big schools, the big universities of the world that have had centuries of basically compartmentalization and censorship established within them to promote
their views,
and the views of the people in power.
Right.
They're putting them forward. So I find it all the time in the work that I do. It's one thing to do an event or to do a talk with someone that doesn't have the name doctor in front of their name. But as soon as you stick the name doctor in front of their name, everybody wants to listen to them. So it's almost like just because an institution writes you a certificate saying you passed our course, then you are gifted enough to go out and spread this knowledge. But meanwhile, the knowledge that they're trying to spread is being censored all along the way. So
and then on top of it, incredibly, is that if you look in history and you look at previous moments in history where there was great advancements in science, it typically didn't come from the institutions of the time. It typically came from independent researchers, people that thought that thought completely outside the box, differently, and that upset the apple cards, and they were censored, they were persecuted, they were, and eventually people went, oh, but maybe he's right. And often it was too late. They had either killed the person or, the person
stuck him in jail forever. Or whatever.
Exactly. And so it's kind of sad that this, in some ways, continues into a modern age. Science should not be about dogma and believing that something is specifically that way. It should be open to any ideas, and then the ideas that are correct will, eventually come out of the bunch, and the rest will weed out. And this is the way science is truly meant to be.
So that then therefore the actual wording of the scientific method is something that you hold true to yourself. If it's applied properly, it actually works.
That's right. And it shouldn't be about what degrees someone has or not. Einstein wrote relativity long before he got a PhD, and so on. It just is critical that in fact, in order for somebody to come up with something new and outside the box and more evolved than what it is, that person has to be able to step out of what's being taught in the universities every day, and all the indoctrination that goes on in some ways, not necessarily voluntarily, but it's just that if you learn these things, you're gonna tend to think that way, and if you continue to think the same way everybody else is thinking, you're gonna arrive at the same point, and you're not gonna be able to move very far the field of investigation you're in. You might be able to move it a little bit, but you might be moving it in the wrong direction because you went with everybody else as well. So, in order for, a big quantum jump in our understanding to happen, for it to happen, it has to be somebody that is thinking outside the box.
I agree 100%. And this begs the question then. Everybody knows that there seems to be a pressing need for immediate change in the world today, and what the work that you're doing with the Resonance Project Foundation, it's not only physics, it's also environmental, it's also health-based theories and practices and solutions.
Right.
What would happen if, and I urge everybody to check out his website and the foundation's website, what would happen if an institution goes, you know what, Nassim, you are right, come with us. You got full funding and you got the run of the show. What would you do in that situation? What would happen if they tried to bring you into the fold? Would you see that as a means to control the output of your foundation, or is that something that you would welcome?
We are approached, and we do collaborate with people that are very much in the mainstream and mainstream institutions, financial and scientific and so on. People are not necessarily aware of it, but we do, and because we don't want to do what, we don't want to segregate like we have been segregated.
Right.
We have to bring everybody together. We have to all evolve. So it's not
it's not us against them.
It's not an us against them thing. We and absolutely more and more of the scientific community and the institutional community are interested, and in fact the foundation right now is undergoing some changes that involve the private sector and all this stuff. Of course, it's challenging for some parts of the private sector to be faced with changes that may involve, infinite amount of energy available in every point in space, gravitational drives where we can leave the planet, all these things. They change our way of doing business. They change our society very fundamentally. And
people are going to be threatened. That is what's going to happen.
There
right?
is
Yeah.
already, you know, but at the same time, we have to move forward.
Yeah.
We are challenged right now in our ecology, in the way we live on this planet, and our capacity to survive. And these are the solutions that can totally transform our society and save our world.
Yeah.
So that transition has to happen. And people know that. Yeah. Even in the industry, in the agencies, in the political realms, you know, these people are people. They have children, they have family. Yeah. They want the earth to continue. They want our society to evolve. So it's actually happening. Yeah. It just takes a little time.
Yeah. So that this evolution of our consciousness and this feedback system you're talking about, where we're going to get what we need, it's not what we want. Mm-hmm. If we all open ourselves up and become our individuals, not be controlled, mm-hmm. and allow this information to go forward and allow this collaboration to happen. I've talked to many scientists that work for institutions like NASA who they're literally, you sit them down in a chair and they're the most passionate people about whatever subject they're on. Mm-hmm. And then, but they still get thrown under that blanket of, well, you're working for a government organization, so you're all corrupt. And mm-hmm. I personally, my opinion is we got to let that go. Right? We got to let that go. We got to be able to cooperate with each other. We got to be able to give a little bit of amnesty for the people that work for these government organizations, for them to come out. And I'm sure you talk to them too. They love your concepts.
Absolutely. So some of them are very excited about what I'm doing, and they might not publicly talk about it. And you know, many of them don't, because you know, if they do, then they, you know, they're under big duress from their peers and their funding and institution. And so it's not necessarily the best thing for them to do, but they incorporate a lot of the stuff I do and others in their thought process and all this, and it's changing the world slowly from the inside. Right. And it's not because somebody works for a governmental agency or even for the military or whatever, that they're not people. They're people. They have families, they have children, and they're actually, and most of them are doing things because they think what they're doing is the best for the planet, and they want to help. You know, it might be misguided in some cases when they're shooting each other, you know, in some country, but it's changing and it's evolving, and we have to open our arms and open our hearts and not do what they're doing to us. Yes. And that, because otherwise, you know, we defeat the purpose of the whole operation.
Wonderful. Please check out Nassim's website, the Residence Project Foundation. You can find all the links and all the information cited below in this video. And if you see this video,
Nassim in the raw.
In the raw, yes. So thank you very much for watching, and we'll talk to you soon.
Let's jump in the lake.
Hear that loon?
Yeah, right at the end.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go and connect with the universe. It's all fluid dynamics. Let's do it. Glacier water, here we go. Whoa! Whoa! Thank you. Thank you. So Klaus came to me with these pictures a few months ago, and kind of threw me for a loop. I was just amazed to find these pictures. These pieces, they are the first pieces I've seen in archaeology that so descriptively seem... Everybody understand English? Yes.
Theorie.
So, you know, here in this piece, for instance, first of all, the piece look very much like the vehicle that is portrayed on it. So the piece
Objekt
itself
selbst schaut aus wie ein UFO.
And the object is obviously arriving in the solar system. We see planets around it. The sun here, it's flaring quite strongly. And, you know, this is very, very distinct physics that we know of. This is very much description of what we call a wormhole in physics, which is a consequence of Einstein field equation. That was first worked out by John Wheeler. And, you know, what's really remarkable here, first of all, you know, these pieces, usually in many of the pieces that KLAUS and I have been looking at for some 20 years or 25 years, you know, there's a certain amount of interpretation that has to be done, a certain amount of decoding. So basically, you know, usually there's a certain amount of interpretation that has to happen, but here there's no interpretation needed. It's pretty clear. This is obviously a spaceship that is coming out of what we call a wormhole. And what was really exciting for me is that, you know, in standard physics, when we came up with the mathematic for a wormhole in standard physics, when the wormhole mouth is billions and billions of times smaller than an atom.
Der Ausgang des Wurmlochs ist millionenfach kleiner, smaller than
an atom.
Als ein Atom.
Yeah. And so it's conceptually impossible to travel through wormholes.
Drum sagt die Wissenschaft, ist es unmöglich, durch ein Wurmloch zu reisen.
But there is one possibility, and that is that spin at high velocity can open the mouth of a wormhole.
Ja, jetzt gehst du aber her.
Come on.
Weil
yes. But that possibility is only possible in the physics of spin in Einstein field equation, which is something I put in to Einstein field equation. So basically, here you can see that the wormhole is spinning, and that is opening a mouth for the spaceship to come out.
Man kann halt sehen, dass an der einen Seite das Wurmloch klein ist und sich immer weiter erweitert und dann im Endeffekt das UFO rauskommen kann.
You want to go to the next?
Ja.
So here we have an even more amazing piece. And you know, you are all some of the first ones to see these pieces.
Also noch ein beeindruckendes Bild und wir sind welche der Ersten, die das sehen?
Die Ersten.
And you can see again we have a solar system. Here is a planet with an atmosphere.
Das Sonnensystem und der Ring, den da gezeigt hat, ist ein Planet mit einer Atmosphäre.
And this planet with an atmosphere must be the Earth. We can assume it's the Earth, but it's definitely a planet with an atmosphere. There's a ship here and a ship here.
Ja, wir nehmen an, dass es die Erde ist, weil es eine Atmosphäre hat und man sieht dann halt diese Schiffe, die Richtung Erde, weil wir es annehmen gehen.
And there's a nice little blow-up of what's inside the dome of the ship.
Ja, wie so eine Explosionszeichnung, also das, was innen drin ist, zeigt dann da oben halt das Bild.
In case you're confused about what it is. And this is as well, you can see the steps here, typical of, pyramidal step pyramids.
Ja, man sieht da halt diese Streifen, das sieht aus wie eine Treppe und das erinnert eben an diese Stufenpyramiden, die man überall findet.
And here we can see that this ship is following a comet that is coming at the Earth.
Da kann man annehmen, dass das UFO im Prinzip einem Kometen folgt, der auf die Erde zusteuert.
Or at least at the planet that's here. And you can see that this UFO, right, which you can see is moving at high velocity, is doing something to push the comet. So this could be a representation of an event either in our past or in our future. And So a very interesting piece as well.
May I say here something? Hmm?
So if here you have, you shouldn't be recording this. No recording. Okay, so here we have other pieces. Again, we have a solar system. The sun is very clear here. We have a planet with an atmosphere. We have another planet here, and we've got an ascending ship here, another one down there, and then one inside the sun flare. And as you will see in my conference, I'm going to show you the mathematics and the reason why it may be appropriate to think of the sun as a doorway to travel through our galaxy and even in our universe. And the ancient people always called it a doorway. So here, So here we see a UFO coming out of the sun. It's very specific.
Bei den Objekten auch ein Kristallschädel gefunden, und zwar mit einem leicht vorgehenden Kinn, der innen hohl ist.
Here we have another piece. This piece is really interesting.
Okay, ein anderes, was super interessant ist, sagt er.
Because here we have a picture of the whole piece. We can see the stairways on the side here.
Also da an der Seite, sagt er, sieht man Treppenstufen.
And if we look carefully again, we have a spaceship coming out of the sun. This must be Saturn. Then there's another planet there. And when we look carefully around the UFO, around the object, we find little windows with the... Oh.
Okay, Heinrich. 62 is also a problem with the computer sometimes. Yeah.
So let's put it back.
Thank you.
Yes.
He's professional.
So here we have little windows with little guys with big eyes looking out of the little windows that are inlays inside the piece itself. Big eyes. And here we are probably seeing a representation of the field structure that the UFO or the spaceship is creating. They're giving us a clue about how to build the space drive. To open the wormhole, to spin the wormhole and open it, you must have a drive that is spinning the field. Good. Next.
Yep.
Here we have being on Earth, that is pointing at the stars. He's holding one of those objects in his hands. He's pointing at either a planet or a star. It could be a planet, but we can see again the comet team, very, very prominent on all these pieces, the comet with, objects in it, and then a UFO over the head.
Ganz genau. Die linke.
And just to link that with something that makes sense maybe to you, okay, that was the last one.
Yeah.
There is an increase in solar activity at this time in history. There's an increase in comet gazing, solar comet, and all sorts of objects entering our solar system. So, this might be pieces that are telling us about this time in history.
Also jetzt die Signifikanz von diesen ganzen Steintafeln richtig verstehen zu können, muss man